according to Mexico's climate in recent years, there has been some vulnerabilities blocking its ways of development. The first vulnerability is that there has always been some drought and hurricanes on its own land, which cause increasing temperature, unsustainable agriculture practice, and dramatic population growth. Also, there are some insecurity food produced since the climate is changing and unpredictable. Food price will increase a lot if consumers want security food. Moreover, producers need some practice to adopt the new environment, and they also need some practices from sustainable agriculture. Thus, the increasing cultivation may cause deforestation. The second one is in changing temperature and participation and the affected temperature climate forests in the past of unbalanced ecosystem and biodiversity. The climate change make temperature increase and participation decrease. 70% of world species live in Mexico. Temperature, climate, forests are affected. Change in foresting is a reduction in water supply in some areas. The insufficient water supply in forests makes some species survive hardly. Moreover, the third and various natural disasters is a third vulnerabilities in Mexico, which cause an increase in sea level and severe weather such as heavy rainfall. Mexicans who inhabit coastal zones may be affected by flooding. It will influence people's activity and business, such as fishing, growing crops, and tourism. There will be more people migrate to cities. It may cause the conflict between governments and citizens. Also, there are a few more vulnerable, including desertification and cloud forest reserves. However, every coin has two sides. There are also some opportunities against the vulnerabilities that bring some hope to Mexico. The first one is reducing desertification rates, which may improve people who rely directly in forests and environments. On one hand, it could reduce greenhouse gases and decrease soil erosion. On the other hand, it could protect livelihoods nearby forests. It also benefits the economy since governments doesn't have to put a lot of money in environmental improvements. The second one is in the field of shifting electrical generation, which costs infant all citizens. Mexico can shift its electricity generation from coal and natural gas to some new energies like solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, biofuels, tide, and wave energy. As we all know, the new energy are clean, abundant, reliable, and versatile. It could increase government revenues and the number of job opportunities. Also, it will reduce greenhouse gases. The last opportunity is decreasing the emission of methane from gas industry. Mexico's oil and gas industry has the opportunity to cut 54% of its total emission of methane by 2020, and by using low-cost, readily available control measures, which may impact all citizens, especially the people who live around the factories. It has many benefits. On the one hand, the reducing air pollution can bring healthy benefits to people who live around the factories, especially the factory workers. On the other hand, by using low-cost, readily available control measures, people can save a large amount of cost on the control of methane emission and the sale of captured natural gas. What's more, it can reduce conventional pollutants such as volatile organic compounds and hazardous air pollutants. Also, relatively reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. The last but not least, in the field of Mexico's energy reform, Mexico got a new structure and ended a monopoly in the field of energy. This will impact all people who live in Mexico. As same as the last one, it has many benefits. On the one hand, it could end the monopoly of the energy sector in Mexico for nearly 75 years and provide an estimated 2.5 million jobs to the society. On the other hand, it could open a new market of the energy for appealing foreign investments. Furthermore, it could sign some laws of providing more capital and resources to increase energy production and decrease consumers' energy cost. So these are the vulnerabilities and opportunities of the Mexico climate.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the history of Mexico's contribution of climate change and the trade-offs, and also how different group population affected by climate change differently. First is economy change. Before Industrial Revolution and global imperialism, Mexico's economy in the colonial period was based on resource extraction, mainly silver, and on agriculture and ranching and on trade, with manufacturing playing a minor role. Independence in Mexico in 1821 was economically difficult for the country. And after the Industrial Revolution and global imperialism, Mexico produced large amount of silver, supplying more than half the world's new supply until 1860. As economic activities in many communities moved from agriculture to manufacturing production, shifting from its traditional location in the home and small workshop to factories. This is one of the contributions to climate change, since more industry would produce more greenhouse gases. Also, foreign capital built a railway network, one of the keys for transforming the Mexican economy. A large proportion of the population relocated from the countryside to the towns and the cities. Okay, so next is about current emission. Mexico became the first developing country to release its post-2020 climate action plan. It commits the country to reduce the greenhouse gases emission by 22% and its black carbon by 51% by 2030. Relative to business as usual levels, its goal combined with the INDCs of other countries around the world. Deforestation. For the history, in 1950s, population explosion and expansion of agricultural borders, and that result in the deforestation of 10 million hectares. 1970s, Green Revolution, a clearance program, new agrarian law, and the conversions of forest land for cattle ranching. In 1980s, clearance program and the discouragement of land use change. For carbon footprint, Mexico is one of the tropical countries with the largest share of carbon emissions from deforestation. Every year between 2001 and 2013, deforestation in the tropical released an average of 2.27 gigatons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The authors reported in Global Change Biology in order to stave off the worst consequence of climate change. Government from around the world agreed half a decade ago that the carbon emissions had to be reduced enough to keep global temperatures from climbing more than 2 degrees Celsius. But how climate change affect different citizens? For urban people, they drive less to reduce greenhouse gases emission, use water more efficient, like water recycling and reuse. Small farmers in Mexico who receive little institutional support are drawing on their traditional knowledges to deal with and adapt to climate change. For rural women, they face serious water supply problem, insufficient for harvesting crops. So rural women put a lot of efforts to ensure food security in their households and their countries. as well in climate change adaptation effort. Also, there are some vulnerable groups were affected by climate change. First, women, making important contribution to household food security in Mexico ensure their responsibility for maintaining the maize crop. Because of their role in household subsistence and their own limited access to income-generating activities, they are contributing to climate change. And second is pro-people. Climate change could slow down the pace of poverty reduction, which means climate change could increase the poverty rate because of the extreme weather, which will bring tons of economic loss. And third one is indigenous people. In different areas of Mexico, where indigenous people lived, they cultivate coffee, maize as predominant ones, which typically in association with beans in much of the highland, and complement this is different degree with fruit and forest production. And the last one is older adults. General temperature range and indoor heat stroke are two such phenomena for which elderly population are particularly at risk for heart-related mortality. According to the research, Mexico have indicated a high and positive correlation between high DTR and mortality. Next, I can talk about the trade-offs. First, reduce industrial factories in crowded area, while less industry costs less employment and GDPs. Second, regulate the coastal tourism to reduce pollution, but it will decrease the income from the coastal tourism. Third, change the structure of agriculture, but it will highly decrease the cost and investment. And the last one is reduce the logging. But the supply of wood cannot catch the demand of it.
Now I'm going to talk about Mexico's climate change strategies. Mexico involvement in climate change. Mexico has been involved in global climate change initiatives. Mexico becomes the first developing country to promise a cut in carbon emissions without fearing the impact that such a decision might have on its economy. The country recently signed a climate change pact with the United States. The agreement was to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gas to the environment. The country intends to reduce its dependence on fossil fuel by getting 35% of its energy requirements from renewable resources. Mexico intends to impose carbon tax on industries that emit carbon dioxide. Of Mexico's involvement in climate change. Mexico has played an important role in climate change initiatives. In 2010, Mexico hosted a climate change forum that adopts the Cancun Adaptation Framework. The meeting recognized adaptation as a priority in climate change. Mexico constitutes the conference of parties that have raised the UNFCCC. The country furthers the resolutions of UNFCCC with the country hosting the COP16. Mexico is also a member of major economics forum on energy and climate change that is intended to facilitate dialogue on climate change resolutions. Next is the climate change actions. The Mexico intends to acquire green technologies, fast-track its climate change agenda. The country has also developed a national climate change strategy to guide its climate change initiatives. The strategy has set goals that Mexico needs to attain within a given period. The impact of the climate change strategy. All these involvements and actions help the climate change strategy recognize sustainable development as a pillar of economic development. The national climate change strategy is intended to improve the health outcome of the citizens. The strategy is also expected to enhance the quality of life of the Mexicans. Of the summaries, Mexico seeks to reduce its carbon emissions by first investing in clean energy. The energy sector produces about 65% of the country's carbon emissions. Mexico has developed a national climate change strategy document that directs all its climate change initiatives. The country has been a key player in global climate change initiatives.
Okay, I have a couple of recommendations that how to reduce Mexico emissions. After the Paris COP, there are a number of recommendations that Mexico can proceed with in the international change negotiations. The major goal that has been outlined as reduction of emissions to the point that the global temperatures rise to not more than 2 degrees Celsius by the end of century. The proposal by Mexico proposes specific strategies that will help in ensuring the proper working of Paris Agreement. Each nation should be allowed to set their own climate goals and come up with specific ways of attaining the goals. However, we propose that these goals be presented from time to time and the nation be seen to making attempts to meet them. Though not binding, the nation's commitment need to be seen by the rest of nations to avoid merely setting goals and leaving it at that. To hold countries accountable, we suggest the transparency mechanism be there, but this should not be uniform for all the members, but instead should take into account every member's different capacity. Developing countries, for instance, should not be subjected to the same requirements as the developed country. In terms of finances required for development of renewable energy, Mexico suggested that developed countries take the lead and allow the developed countries only to contribute as per their abilities through infusion depending on the economic circumstance. This can be changed to make the developed countries make more contribution. To ensure continued implementation of the plan, Mexico suggested that every state update their actions after every 4 years, which need to be more strong than the existing ones. There should be a room for countries to make an advancement to their ambition at any given time. Other countries should also have an opportunity to provide opinions to a country during its action review. Next is implication for future generations. The recommendation for meeting the challenge of climate change will focus on improving an understanding as well as solution at the local to the global positions. They will also integrate many kinds of new things, and they will engage the physical, social, ecological, engineering, and health sciences in Mexico. They will emphasize human environment systems instead of individual human environmental situations in the country. Through the recommendations, there will be evaluation of the implications of choices across sectors to maximize on the benefits and minimize on the unintended consequences. The recommendations will support decision-making in the event of inevitable uncertainty by regularly assessing the research priorities. Some of these recommendations can have considerations for women and also those people whose geographical positions affect their climate to some way. And in Mexico, our recommendation would be the value to the indigenous groups as vulnerable people by the emphasis on human environment systems instead of environmental systems.